You're driving home. Late, quiet road, nothing unusual. Then the lights hit your mirror. You pull over, you take a breath, you put both hands on the wheel because you've seen the videos, you know what to do. You're calm, you're cooperative. The officer walks up, asks for your license and registration. You hand it over, so far so good, and then, before he even says another word, he reaches out and taps your taillight. Most people don't even notice it. They're focused on his face, on his tone, on what he's about to say next. The taillight tap barely even registers. Just something officers do, right? Wrong. That tap, that one small, quiet, physical gesture, is one of the most deliberate moves in a traffic stop. And the reason most drivers don't know what it means is the reason it works. I'm going to walk you through exactly what that tap is doing, why it's done, what it triggers legally, and most importantly, the exact words you need to say when it happens. Because here's the thing, by the time you realize a stop has gone sideways, you've usually already said the wrong thing, already given consent you didn't mean to give, already made statements you can't take back. That's what we're protecting you from today. Now, most people walk into a traffic stop with one instinct. Be polite, cooperate, answer the questions, just get it over with. And look, that instinct isn't wrong on its face. Calm and respectful is exactly the right tone. But calm and cooperative are two very different things. Cooperating means handing over your license and registration, following lawful instructions, not arguing, not escalating. It does not mean answering questions you're not legally required to answer. It does not mean consenting to searches. It does not mean explaining yourself when you haven't been asked to explain yourself. There's a difference, a big one. Most people never learn that difference. They think silence is suspicious. They think refusing a search makes them look guilty. They think answering questions just to help can only help. That's the trap, and that's exactly what a skilled officer knows you believe. So when he taps your taillight, when he does anything that seems small, casual, routine, he's already working. He's already building something, and if you don't know what that something is, you'll hand it to him without realizing it. Today we're going through 7 things that happen during a traffic stop, starting with the taillight tap, that most drivers either misread or completely miss. For each one, I'll tell you what the move actually is, what it's designed to accomplish, what legal principle it touches, the exact phrase you should say, and what not to say, because sometimes the wrong 3 words can undo everything. This isn't theory. This isn't abstract legal philosophy. Every single phrase I give you today is short, calm, respectful, and legally sound. You can memorize it before the next time you get pulled over, and if you've never been pulled over before, good. Learn this now while you have time, because the worst time to learn this stuff is in the moment. I'm Marcus Hale. This channel exists for one reason, to make sure you know your rights before you need them, not after. We break down the law as it actually operates in real encounters, real stops, real pressure situations, not courtroom theory, real life. Everything in this video is for educational purposes. The laws vary by state, by jurisdiction, by specific circumstances. This is not legal advice. If you're facing a specific legal situation, you need a licensed attorney in your area. But the principles we cover here, the constitutional foundations, the practical phrases, the awareness of what's actually happening during a stop, that knowledge is yours to carry. Let's get into it. Before we go through the 7 moves, I want you to understand something important about how traffic stops are structured. They are not random. They are not improvised. A trained officer knows exactly what he's doing from the moment he activates those lights to the moment he either writes a ticket or takes the encounter further. There is a framework, and within that framework, every question, every pause, every friendly comment, every physical gesture, all of it has a purpose. That purpose might be establishing control of the scene and the interaction, testing your reactions to gauge nervousness or deception, building a timeline of where you've been and where you're going, looking for inconsistencies that create reasonable suspicion, generating voluntary statements on body camera, creating implied or verbal consent to search, manufacturing a legal basis to extend the stop beyond its original purpose. Now, none of this means every officer is your enemy. That's not what we're saying. But it means you need to understand the structure of what's happening so you can protect yourself within it. The law gives you very specific rights during a stop. The question is whether you know how to use them without making things worse. That's what the next 7 sections are for. Move 1, the taillight tap. The setup. The officer walks up to your car. Before he says a word or sometimes mid-conversation, he reaches out and presses his hand firmly against the trunk or taillight area of your vehicle. It happens fast. It looks casual. It feels like nothing. What most people think. Most drivers think it's just a physical habit, a way to test the lights, maybe something officers do to steady themselves. They don't give it a second thought. What it's actually doing. The tap has 2 purposes, and both of them matter. The first is practical. It leaves the officer's fingerprints on your vehicle. If something happens to that officer, if the stop goes badly, if there's an incident, there is forensic evidence that he was present at that exact car. It protects the officer. That part is relatively well known. But the second purpose is the one most people miss entirely. The tap is also designed to startle you. Think about that for a second. You're already nervous. You're sitting in a stopped car, lights flashing in your mirror, trying to seem calm. And then there's a sudden physical sound, you knock on your car and from behind you where you can't fully see. That startle response is real. It's involuntary. And in that moment of surprise, some people instinctively reach for things, look toward the glove box, shift in their seat, make a sudden movement. That movement can be documented. That reaction can become part of a narrative. It can also cause someone to rush, to hand something over, to speak too fast, to volunteer information before they've thought about it. The legal dimension. The Fourth Amendment protects you from unreasonable searches and seizures, but that protection has boundaries, and one of those boundaries is that voluntary statements and voluntary movements can be used. If your startled response leads to you pointing at a compartment or verbally explaining something unprompted, that observation and those words can become part of what gives an officer reasonable suspicion to escalate. You handed that to him, involuntarily maybe, but it happened. The exact phrase, "I want to cooperate with you, officer. I'm just going to keep my hands visible right here." Say it calmly. Hands visible on the wheel. No explanation. No elaboration. What you're doing is establishing, on camera, that you are cooperative, you are calm, and you are aware. You are not flinching. You are not explaining. You are not giving anything that wasn't asked for. What not to say, don't say. What was that? Or, you just hit my car. Don't make it a confrontation. Don't draw attention to it. And definitely don't say, what are you looking for, Isao? Because that opens a conversation you don't want to be in. Stay on the wheel, stay calm, stay quiet beyond that line. That's the move. The tap is designed to get a reaction. Your job is to not give one. Move 2. Do you know why I pulled you over? The setup. The officer has your license. He's looking at it. And then he turns back to you and says, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" It's the most common question in traffic stops. It sounds almost like small talk. What most people think. Most people think the right move is to guess or admit. They think that being honest about what they might have done wrong shows good faith and will be rewarded. I might have been going a little fast. I think I didn't stop all the way at that light. I was on my phone for a second. They think they're being cooperative. They're actually building the officer's case. What it's actually doing. This question is designed to get you to make an admission on body camera, voluntarily, before you've even seen a citation, before you know what you're actually being accused of. Because here's the thing, if you guess wrong, you've admitted to something the officer didn't even clock you for. You've now confessed to a second violation for free. And if you guess right, you've just told the officer, in your own words, that you committed the violation. That's the cleanest evidence he can get. Either way, you lose. The legal dimension. The Fifth Amendment protects you from being compelled to incriminate yourself, but you can waive that protection voluntarily. And answering this question without being required to is a voluntary waiver. You're not under arrest. You're not in a custodial interrogation, but your words are still being recorded and they can still be used. The exact phrase, "I'd rather not guess, officer. Could you tell me the reason for the stop?" Polite, direct. Not confrontational. You're asking for information rather than giving it. You're not refusing to engage. You're redirecting. And you're doing it in a way that sounds completely reasonable on camera. What not to say, don't say no flatly. It sounds uncooperative. Don't say, "I have no idea," with a shrug. It can sound performative. Don't say anything that begins to explain your recent driving. Ask for the information. Don't provide it. That's the line. Let him tell you what this is about. Move 3. Where are you coming from tonight? The setup. License in hand, sometimes while he's writing, sometimes while he's waiting for dispatch, and the officer asked, "Where are you coming from tonight?" Or, "Where are you headed?" It sounds like conversation. It isn't. What most people think. People think this is just the officer making small talk, being friendly, filling the silence. And so they answer naturally, the way you'd answer anyone who asked, "Just coming from my friend's place." Leaving a bar, but I only had one drink, coming from the city, heading home from work. And they feel good about it, friendly, cooperative. What it's actually doing, every answer builds a picture, and that picture can be used in multiple ways. If you mention a bar, even in passing, that single word shifts the frame of the entire stop. Now the officer has a documented reason to look for signs of impairment that weren't part of his original purpose. If you say you're coming from the city, that might match a description of a suspect vehicle or a known drug corridor or a recent incident, are things you have no way of knowing about. If your answer is inconsistent with something the officer later sees, a receipt in your cup holder, a destination on your GPS, that inconsistency becomes suspicious behavior. You created all of that. With small talk, the legal dimension. Here's the constitutional foundation. You are not required to answer investigatory questions during a traffic stop. The officer's authority in a stop is narrow. He can ask for your license, registration, and insurance. He can issue a citation. He can run your information. He can ask you other questions, but you are not required to answer them. The question is whether you know that and whether you know how to decline without escalating. The exact phrase, "I'd prefer not to answer questions about my travel tonight, officer." That's it. No explanation, no apology, no antagonism. If he says, "That seems strange, why not?" you stay on script. "I'm not trying to be difficult, I just prefer not to answer those questions." What not to say, don't explain why you don't want to answer. Every explanation opens a new question. Don't say, "I know my rights," that can come across as combative. And for the love of everything, don't mention alcohol, bars, parties, or anything else that shifts the context of the stop. Silence is not guilt, it is a right. Use it calmly and clearly. Move. 4. Do you have anything in the car I should know about? The setup. Sometimes this comes early, sometimes after a moment of silence, sometimes after you've declined to answer another question. The officer leans in slightly and says, "Do you have anything in the car I should know about? Any weapons, drugs, large amounts of cash?" What most people think. This feels like a safety question, like the officer is just making sure the situation is calm. People hear this and think, well, I don't have anything like that, so I'll just say no and we'll move on. And many people do have prescription medication in the car, an old knife in the center console, a forgotten something in the glove box, and they freeze because now they're running a mental inventory under pressure. What it's actually doing. This question serves multiple functions. First, if you say no and the officer later finds something, anything, even legal, your denial becomes inconsistent behavior. It can be used to justify an arrest or a more thorough search. Second, if you say yes to anything, prescription bottles, a legal firearm, cash from a business trip, you have now voluntarily disclosed information that reframes the entire stop. Third, and this is the subtle one, many people respond to this question by starting to explain. Well, I have my prescription medication and I have a hunting knife, but it's legal, and now you're talking, and now the officer's listening, and now you've started a thread he can pull. The legal dimension. The Fourth Amendment requires the government to have a valid reason to search your vehicle. That reason can come from probable cause, something they see or smell, or it can come from your consent. When you start explaining what's in your car unprompted, you are often, without realizing it, manufacturing the very probable cause that allows the officer to ask for a search, or you're edging toward consent. Don't do either. The exact phrase, "I'd rather not answer questions about the contents of my vehicle, officer." Calm, clear, on record. If he follows with, "Why, do you have something to hide?" And that line gets used a lot. Your response is, "I'm not hiding anything. I'm just exercising my right not to answer." What not to say? Don't inventory your car out loud. Don't explain that your medication is legal. Don't say "nothing that I know of." That qualifier is its own problem. And don't say "you can check if you want" unless you are absolutely certain about every corner of that vehicle. The contents of your car are your business until a court says otherwise. That line, hold it. Move. 5. Mind if I take a quick look? The setup. "I'm going to go ahead and run your license. Shouldn't take long. While I do that, would you mind stepping out?" Or, "I'm almost done here, real quick. Do you mind if I just take a look in your vehicle?" Casual, quick, friendly, like it's nothing. What most people think, people hear "quick look" and think they just want to glance in. It'll take 30 seconds. I don't have anything. Cooperating will make this faster. This is the most dangerous misconception in this entire video, what it's actually doing. A quick look is a search. The moment you say yes, you have consented to a Fourth Amendment search of your vehicle, voluntarily, on camera. And that consent is extremely difficult to take back once given. There is no quick look in legal terms. A consent search can be as thorough as the officer decides it needs to be. Seats, trunk, compartments, under floor mats. And here's the part that should make your stomach drop. Even if they find nothing illegal, they can find things that are misidentified, mischaracterized, or simply used to extend the stop further. And if they do find something, even something minor, your consent is what made it legal. You handed them the key, the legal dimension. In Schneckloth v. Bustamante, the Supreme Court established that you do not have to be told you have the right to refuse a consent search in order for your consent to be valid, meaning if you say yes, it counts. Even if you didn't know, you could say no. The law is not on your side in this moment if you consent. The exact phrase, "I don't consent to searches, officer," 6 words, calm voice, no attitude, no explanation. If he pushes, "Why, you got something in there?" Your line is, "I don't consent to searches. Is there anything else you need from me?" What not to say? Do not say fine or go ahead or sure whatever, even sarcastically. Do not say I guess or I suppose. Ambiguous language can be treated as consent. Do not add but nothing's in there anyway. That's an attempt to negotiate consent, and it doesn't protect you. A clear, calm, verbal refusal is your shield. Use it. This is the moment where most people lose their case before it even starts. Real quick, if you're watching this and thinking, I had no idea any of this was happening during stops, you're not alone. Most people don't. That's why this channel exists. Share this video with someone you know before they need it. Because unfortunately, people usually find content like this after something goes wrong, not before. Let's change that. Drop in the comments. Have you ever been through a stop where something felt off, where the questions went further than you expected? I want to hear it. Okay, back to it. We've got 2 more moves to cover, and they might be the most important. Move 6, the extended stop. Can you just wait here for a second? The setup. The original reason for the stop is done. He's run your license. He's written or decided not to write a ticket. And then instead of handing everything back and letting you go, he says, just sit tight for a second, or I'm going to have my partner come take a look, or can I ask you a few more questions? You're still sitting there, but the stop just changed shape. What most people think. People think they have to wait. That the officer is in charge and leaving without permission would be suspicious, risky, maybe even illegal. What it's actually doing, a traffic stop has a constitutionally limited duration. Under Rodriguez v. United States, a 2015 Supreme Court decision, an officer cannot extend a stop beyond the time needed to complete the mission of that stop without independent reasonable suspicion. The mission includes running your license and registration, checking for warrants, writing a citation, and letting you go. What it does not include, fishing for a reason to search, waiting for a drug dog without cause, asking exploratory questions to build suspicion after the stop's purpose is complete. The extended stop, without your consent and without new reasonable suspicion, may not be legal, but if you just sit there and comply, you've made it legal. The legal dimension. This is one of the most important legal concepts in this video. So pay close attention. Rodriguez v. United States, 575 U.S. 348, 2015. The court held that extending a traffic stop even by a few minutes without reasonable suspicion violates the Fourth Amendment. But here's the catch. If you consent to staying, if you voluntarily keep talking, if you don't assert the right to leave, you've waived the protection. The exact phrase, "Officer, are you detaining me or am I free to go?" This is one of the most important questions you can ask at any point in a stop that feels like it's going beyond its purpose. If he says you're free to go, thank him politely and leave. If he says you're detained, do not resist. Do not argue. And say, I understand, I'll wait, but I don't consent to any searches and I'd like to call my attorney. What not to say, don't say, so I can go, in a challenging tone. Don't say, you can't keep me here. Don't try to negotiate or lecture him about Rodriguez. Ask the question clearly, hear the answer, and respond accordingly. That question, am I free to go, forces the encounter onto legal ground. Use it. Move. 7, the friendly exit question. Have a good night. Hey, one more thing. The setup. Everything is done. He's handed back your license. He said, drive safe or have a good night. You've exhaled. You're about to start the car. And then he turns back. Casual, relaxed. Hey, one more thing. You mind if I ask you something real quick? Or he simply asks another question in that same friendly post-stop tone. What most people think the stop is over. They're relieved. Their guard is completely down. And in that relaxed, relieved state, they're more talkative, more open, more unguarded than at any other point in the encounter. That's not a coincidence. What it's actually doing, this technique, sometimes called the afterthought wabi, is a known interrogation strategy. When someone believes the stressful part is over, their defenses drop. They become cooperative in a way that feels natural rather than calculated. Questions asked in this window often get the most revealing answers of the entire stop. And here's the key legal issue. If the stop is genuinely over, if you've been told you're free to go, then you are under no obligation to answer any further questions. You're now a citizen having a voluntary conversation. You can end it. The legal dimension. Once a traffic stop concludes, the legal authority supporting it is gone. Any conversation that follows is voluntary, which means everything you say from that point forward is fully voluntary, with all of the consequences that come with that. Florida v. Bostic and subsequent cases have established that a person is seized only if a reasonable person would not feel free to leave. If you've been told you're free to go and you continue talking, you're doing it by choice. The exact phrase, "Thank you, officer, I'm going to head out now." And then leave. Don't answer the follow-up. Don't engage with the one more thing. Don't explain that you need to get going. Just, "Thank you, officer. Have a good night." Then start the car, then go. What not to say, don't say sure. What is it? You've just consented to another round of questioning. Don't get friendly and talkative just because the tension has dropped. And don't, under any circumstances, answer a question that begins, "You don't happen to have," or "just out of curiosity." The stop being over doesn't mean you're safe. It means your guard has to stay exactly where it was. End the encounter cleanly. All right, let's bring all of this together. Write this down. Save this video. Say these out loud until they're automatic. The 7 moves and what to say. Move 1, the tail light tap. I want to cooperate. I'm going to keep my hands visible right here. Move 2, do you know why I pulled you over? I'd rather not guess. Could you tell me the reason for the stop? Move 3, where are you coming from? I prefer not to answer questions about my travel tonight. Move 4, do you have anything I should know about? I'd rather not answer questions about the contents of my vehicle. Move 5, mind if I take a look? I don't consent to searches, officer. Move 6, extended stop. Am I free to go or am I being detained? Move 7, the friendly exit question. Thank you, officer. I'm going to head out now. 7 moves. 7 responses. All of them calm. All of them legal. All of them designed to protect you while keeping the encounter professional. None of these phrases are about disrespect. None of them are confrontational. All of them are constitutional. That's the combination you want. Print this out. Put it in your glove box. Say these lines out loud before you ever need them. Because in the moment, in the dark, with lights in your mirror and an officer at your window, your brain will go to what it practiced. Give it something good to reach for.